If you've ever wondered how such a technological giant like Facebook came to be, you'll find the answer in the movie The Social Network, which I'll now summarize for you. After watching this video, you'll learn about the history of Facebook, its darker side, and its two founders, Mark Zuckerberg and Eduardo Saverin. Watch it till the end to discover the whole story. It's fall 2003. Mark Zuckerberg and Erica Albright are a couple sitting in a student bar. They're discussing Mark's obsession with joining the exclusive final clubs. Erica is offended when Mark tells her that once he's a member of one of these clubs, she'll have the chance to meet people she wouldn't otherwise because she attends Boston University, not Harvard, like him. Erica storms out after breaking up with him, and Mark, feeling hurt, retaliates by posting a derogatory blog post about Erica. Later, Mark hears an idea from one of his friends and gets the idea to hack into the Facebook accounts of several Harvard houses to download pictures of girls from different houses and create a website called FaceMash. The site's purpose is to compare two girls and allow users to vote on which one is prettier. Meanwhile, the Phoenix Club, an exclusive and lavish final club at Harvard, is hosting its first party of the fall semester. Late in the evening, Mark's friend Eduardo Saverin enters the room and asks him how he's holding up after the breakup with Erica, but Mark needs him to develop an algorithm for FaceMash. Eduardo presents the algorithm formula on the window, and Mark implements it on the website. After testing the site, they send it to several students, and it quickly becomes popular among them. Erica's friend shows her Mark's blog post about her, causing some students to laugh at her. After 4 hours, the traffic on FaceMash is so high that the university administration shuts down the network. In 2009, Mark and Eduardo are in the midst of a legal battle. Erica's testimony is unfavorable to Mark, which frustrates him. However, during a recess in the trial, one of the lawyers is impressed by the fact that over 2,000 people visited his website in just 2 hours, to which Mark corrects her, stating that it was actually over 22,000 visits. Returning to the year 2003, Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss learned from their friend, Divya Narendra, that someone hacked into 7 student houses' Facebook, creating a website in one evening to compare female students. And Divya believes they should recruit Mark for their project. Now, we move on to another court proceeding in 2008, where Mark is in discussions with the Winklevosses. After the FaceMash incident in 2003, the university's administrative board accuses Zuckerberg of several infractions, such as privacy violations, and he is sentenced to 6 months of academic probation. Later, the Winklevoss brothers meet Mark and propose to collaborate on creating the Harvard Connection website, which aims to facilitate meeting and connecting with other Harvard students. Knowing that Mark is a talented programmer, he agrees without hesitation. Returning to the legal proceedings with the Winklevosses, Mark is asked whether he agreed to the proposal regarding the creation of Harvard Connection, to which he responds that he doesn't remember. When asked when he shared the idea of creating the Facebook with Eduardo, he answers that it was at a party. Returning to their Harvard days, Mark and Eduardo meet at a party where Eduardo tells him he received an invitation to join the Phoenix Final Club, which sparks jealousy in Mark. Mark then tells Eduardo about the idea of creating the Facebook, noting that the success of FaceMash was not just about pictures of girls, but about connecting with friends online. Mark sets the terms at 70% for himself and 30% for Eduardo for providing $1,000 for servers and being the CFO, to which Eduardo agrees. During the legal proceedings, Eduardo is asked if Mark ever mentioned his project with the Winklevoss brothers. He responds by saying that he knew about the work on Harvard Connection, but Mark considered it a waste of time. While working on creating Facebook, the Winklevoss brothers repeatedly contact Mark, but he brushes them off, citing a heavy workload, which eventually raises suspicions for the brothers. They write to him that they need to meet as soon as possible. However, this meeting never takes place, and on January 11th, 2004, Mark registers the domain thefacebook.com. Returning to the legal proceedings, with the Winklevosses, Eduardo is asked if, to his knowledge, Mark ever started working on Harvard Connection. He responds that he did not. Divya accuses him of stealing their idea, to which he replies that he never used their code. Returning to 2004, Mark is asked by a student named Dustin if he knows if a certain girl has a boyfriend because Mark attends classes with her, and the boyfriend would like to ask her out. Mark realizes he needs to add a relationship status feature on the Facebook and returns to his room to do so, explaining to Eduardo that this way everyone will know if someone is in a relationship and whether it's worth getting to know them. He then asks Eduardo to provide him with the emails of students from the Phoenix Final Club and launches the website. Later, Divya's girlfriend logs into the Facebook after receiving an email with a link, and Divya is shocked to realize that Mark has been deceiving them all along about working on Harvard Connection. He immediately runs to tell the Winklevoss brothers, who are furious to hear that Zuckerberg stole their idea. They call their wealthy father's lawyer, who is to demand that Mark cease operating the site. The students then attend a lecture by Bill Gates, where suddenly 2 girls, Christy and Alice, approach Eduardo, asking if his friend is the creator of the Facebook, to which he replies that they both created it, and the girls invite them for a drink. After the lecture, they return to the room excited that the Facebook is becoming more popular. Eduardo suggests it's time for Facebook to start making profits through ads, but Mark doesn't like the idea as they are unsure of their project's potential. Suddenly, Eduardo notices a summons from the Winklevoss brothers' lawyer regarding the theft of their intellectual property, which stresses him out. Mark reassures him that he didn't use their code and that his idea was better than theirs. During the court proceedings, it is revealed that Mark deceived the Winklevoss twins and Divya for 6 weeks, pretending to work on the site without admitting it. Later, they go to a bar where women take them to the bathroom. Shortly after, Mark notices Erica in the bar and approaches her to talk privately. However, Erica refuses to speak with him after he insulted her on his blog and tells him to leave. They then return to the room and discuss expanding Facebook's operations to other universities like Yale, Columbia, and Stanford. The Winklevoss brothers and Divya learn about the Facebook's expansion and want to use Harvard's rules prohibiting cheating other students to arrange a meeting with the dean. Meanwhile, entrepreneur Sean Parker, the founder of Napster but now bankrupt, accidentally learns about the Facebook. Seeing its potential, he decides to find Zuckerberg. The Winklevoss brothers meet with the Harvard president and present their case, claiming that Mark stole their idea, citing university law. However, the president doesn't take their issue seriously and suggests they pursue a new project, stating that the university doesn't concern itself with theft between students. During the break between semesters, Mark and Eduardo travel to California to meet with advertisers. During one of the meetings, while Eduardo engages in conversation with a representative from another company, Mark appears bored, which doesn't help the meeting. However, during the final meeting with Parker, Mark garners much more interest. Everyone seems to be having a good time, enjoying drinks, except for Eduardo, who has reservations about Parker. Initially, Sean tells them about Napster, his second company, and the lawsuits he faced, advising Mark to move to California. When the conversation turns to the Facebook, Eduardo asks Sean who is right if Mark doesn't want ads on it but wants to make money from it. Sean leans more towards Mark's approach, as they haven't yet figured out what they've created, adding that $1 billion is better than $1 million. Sean pays the bill, which impresses Mark, and as they leave, he advises them to drop "the" from the name and keep it as just Facebook. During the trial between them, it is mentioned that the ownership breakdown of the company is 65% for Mark, 30% for Eduardo, and 5% for Dustin as the head programmer. Mark's lawyer asks Eduardo if he has done anything that could be grounds for terminating the agreement, or if he has tarnished the company's image or exposed it to losses, to which he responds negatively. Then, the lawyer reminds him of the accusation of animal cruelty towards him, which was published in the Harvard Crimson. However, Eduardo denies it, explaining that as part of the initiation into the Phoenix Club, he had to carry a chicken with him for a week and fed it to another chicken. Returning to 2004, Mark needs more money because he wants to rent a house in California for vacation and bring in 2 interns. Eduardo is surprised by this idea, suspecting it's related to what Parker said. And at this point, Facebook surpasses 150,000 users. The next evening, Mark checks the interns who can work for Facebook, finding the best of the best. Eduardo gives him $18,000 to cover the California house, despite his objections, knowing they need to be on the same team, meanwhile finding the best programmer. The plan was for Mark, Dustin, and the new employees to work in California, while Eduardo looked for advertisers. During the summer, as Facebook moved to California, everything seems to be going in the right direction. When the chimney breaks off in the house rented by Mark during a poolside barbecue, Sean unexpectedly appears in front of his house to check if everything is okay. Sean enters the house and sees that everything is well organized and learns that Eduardo is not with them but is in New York. In the evening, Mark and Sean are at the club, and Mark tells him about the plan to expand to 100 colleges, to which Sean says he'll help bring Facebook to 2 continents, after which Mark proposes that he move in with his entire team. Meanwhile, during the university rowing competition in the UK, the Harvard team, including the Winklevoss brothers, takes second place. Upon learning that the race footage could be watched at several universities in England on Facebook, they are furious and decide to sue Mark in federal court. Meanwhile, Eduardo arrives in California and is unhappy to see Sean. Eduardo tells Mark that he doesn't want Parker to be part of their company, to which Mark responds that the action is happening here and that Sean has arranged a meeting with a large investment fund. However, Eduardo is furious, emphasizing that when he was in New York, he went from company to company working for the good of Facebook. Mark, however, stresses that his actions are not yielding results and that he might be left behind. After these words, Eduardo decides to freeze the company's bank account. Then, Mark and Sean meet with the owner of the investment fund, Peter Thiel, thanks to Sean's contacts, and learn that the company will invest $500,000 in Facebook. Eduardo returns to New York, and Christy comes to see him. She is angry because Eduardo hasn't changed his status on Facebook. Suddenly, Mark calls him about the frozen account and is mad at him. Meanwhile, Christy sets fire to the dumpsters and leaves. Eduardo puts out the fire, then hears that Thiel has invested $500,000 in Facebook. They establish an office and will need to change their legal structure, so Mark tells him to return to California as soon as possible. Then Eduardo signs the documents, which show that he will own 34.4% of the company, Mark 51%, Dustin 6.81%, Sean 6.47%, and Peter Thiel 7%. During the trial, Eduardo admits that he didn't realize he was signing his own sentence, adding that he regrets letting the lawyer review the papers because he thought Mark was on his side. After signing the documents, Mark tells him that he's taking a 6-month break from school, but asks Eduardo to return at the end of the year for the party celebrating 1 million users. At the end of November, Eduardo receives an email from Mark inviting him to the party celebrating 1 million users and stating that they need to meet regarding business matters as another company has made them a brilliant offer. When Eduardo arrives at the Facebook office, he learns from the lawyer that his shares have been reduced to 0.03%. He is furious at Mark for deceiving him and tells him that he's not coming back for his 30%, but for everything, before storming out. Shortly after, Facebook surpasses the 1 million user mark. In the evening, the party is in full swing with Sean and the interns indulging in some kind of substance. Suddenly, the police enter and things get complicated when it's revealed that one of the interns is underage. Sean calls Mark to inform him of the situation, and Mark realizes that this will become a scandal and that Sean is not truly trustworthy. Returning to 2008, after everyone leaves, Mark speaks to one of the lawyers, saying he's not a bad person and asking what happens now. She tells him that a settlement will be prepared and Mark will have to pay more than they want due to a confidentiality clause. Then, Mark finds Erica on Facebook and sends her a friend request, refreshing the page constantly to see if she's accepted it. The Winklevoss brothers received $65 million and signed a confidentiality clause. It's unclear how much Eduardo Severin received, and he is once again listed in the footer as a co-founder. Facebook's value at that time is estimated at $25 billion, and Mark Zuckerberg becomes the world's youngest billionaire.